But Tommy Heinsohn was basically affiliated with the Boston Celtics from 1956 until the day he died. And even when he was in the early years after he retired in '65, he was an insurance salesman. Right away, he becomes a color man on when Channel 27 came into being, and he was always associated with the Celtics. And as much as anybody who deserves the claim to be Mr. Celtic ever, other than Red, who's was the godfather of the whole thing, it is Tommy Heinsohn.
Jackie, can you recall your first contact with the team, per se? That was nice of you.
I don't, actually, because we were, back then, the Boston Globe, I was 24 in 1984, okay? So I was the...
Don't do any math.
I was the 16th man in. Like, we were covering the team, but I was the 16th person. We were all writing what we call sidebars. So I do remember that DJ, Dennis Johnson, was kind of looking at me like this. And one day he said, what's your story? I said, I don't know. I don't know if I have one. And he said, did you play? I said, yeah. And he said, that's all I need to know. Because some of those guys, I don't know if that was true with men, but with women, if they knew you played, it really seemed to help. It really did. And I don't know if that's fair or unfair. I don't think it should matter. Some of the greatest writers in our industry of all time were not athletes. But look, if it got DJ to talk to me, I'm cool with it. It's all good.
You played every day.
Yeah, whatever they want. I won $10 off Isaiah Thomas on the parquet.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's a name that's going to
Turn around jump
come up in a
shot.
little bit here, I think.
Yeah.
Let's get to why we're here tonight, and that is to pick the top 15 Celtics.
Yeah.
First, before we get into specifics, I start with you, Bob. How difficult was it to whittle that list to 15?
Well, we've been blessed. The two organizations that have the most players of prominence in the history of the league, clearly, unarguably, no dispute, non-negotiable, are the Celtics and the Lakers. And when you're talking about top 15, top 20, or even top 5, whatever, you're talking about the two most prominent organizations in the history of the league. It was very hard. Very hard. And then for me, the biggest problem in coming up with a list was assessing point of time of service as opposed to overall, or organizational contribution.
In other words, he's not putting Bill Walton on.
No, and you know how I love Bill Walton more than anybody, but you can't put him on for a year and change. You can't. I can do that and I can put Bill Walton in other content. Well, we're going to get to that.
Yeah.
But
See, I didn't think this was that hard until the 15th spot, the last spot. I thought the other 14. I bet, and I'm not gonna. I'm going to bet that we have similar, if not exactly the same, for the top 14. I'm just guessing. He taught me everything I know, so I'm just going to say that maybe that's the case.
Let me just say this, as of somebody who voted for the 75th and the 50th and 75th, even with the 75th, with all the painstaking, I thought, research I did, all the time and effort I put into it, all the care and passion I put into it, I forgot somebody.
Who'd you forget? See, I voted for the 75th, too. That was a lot harder than this.
2 days after I hit the send button on the computer to send my ballot in, I said, I forgot McAdoo. Now, there is nobody in outside of Buffalo, no writer, now this is my personal conceit, all right, so take it for what it's worth. There was no writer outside of Buffalo who had more reason to appreciate Bob McAdoo than me, because I was front and center when he was having these epic battles with Dave Cowens in the 80s, and Buffalo was a viable team and a wonderful team, and McAdoo was a force of nature, MVP, scoring champion. Somehow I blew it, but I said to myself, okay, he's going to make it. You don't have to beat yourself up, because despite the fact that he didn't get your vote, he'll get enough votes, he'll make it. You won't have to, you won't have to worry about it. And he did. So I feel better about that. And there's a name on this list that I probably forgot. Simply.
Or just didn't put on.
Because
there's one on this list that I did not put on for the 75th. And he made it.
Let's start at the top and go down, because it'll be easier that way.
Okay.
Jackie, your top 5.
Top 5. In no particular order, or we'll just do that.
Just
Russell, Bird, Kuzi, Havlicek. Now the 5th one, I went back and forth, and I came up with Cowens.
I went, first of all, 1 to 4, to me, is totally unarguable. If you argue the 1 to 4 that Jackie just gave, that I endorse, then you don't belong in this discussion. And that's it. So it's Russell, Bird, Kuzi, Havlicek, okay? 4. Then I draw a line. 5 has always been the issue. And I have come out in the past as endorsing a certain individual as 5, and I have to stick to my guns. The best pure scorer in Celtic history. The man who could find a way to put the ball in the basket more ways than any Celtic ever, which includes, I dare say, Larry and John, is Pierce. He's number 5.
Wow.
Good call.
You stunned me just now.
But I've been saying that for years.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not with you every day.
I mean, I think it was 2002. He had a game. He had a playoff game. We scored 40 and had like 20 free throws. And I said, kids, don't try this at home. You know, this is not. He is, and that's when I arrived at the conclusion that he is the best pure scorer in Celtic history.
But
And
does that mean that he's one of the top 5 of all time just because he's the best pure scorer in history? I'm just playing devil's advocate with you.
That's the way I will stick with my guns.
Tommy would tell you, if he needed 1 point in the game, Paul Pierce has the ball in his hands.
So
I love Paul Pierce. I mean, Paul Pierce is on my list. He's,
So who's your next 5?
well, why don't you go first this
My
time?
next 5 is the guy that I most, it's McHale,
Yeah.
Cowens, 8, Sam Jones, and then I draw a line. To me, that's my 8, and you shouldn't be arguing. To me, I'm not budging on those 8. So those are my next 4.
But we need 10.
Convince me of Sam.
And the next one is Parrish.
No, convince me of Sam. Why?
Oh, Sam?
Yeah.
Oh, if you did a scouting report, you're an NBA scout, and they send you out to scout all the college guys in America right now and in Europe, and they say we got a 6'4" guy who can shoot. He's a dead-eye shooter. He can go to the basket with one of the great first steps I've ever seen. He can guard you. Don't foul him, and he's fearless. And he's strong, got an NBA body. You say, wow, that's Sam Jones. There haven't been that many guards in the last 50 years who have a better NBA profile from the guard position better than Sam Jones. That's my take.
And you know what you left out was that he was one of the greatest clutch shooters that ever lived.
And yet he always protested. He didn't want to do it, but he did it. And so I'm...
So Sam
I think
Jones,
I think he's the most underappreciated great player in history, not just the Celtics, but history. He's in the Hall of Fame, and he should. But people don't
He's on
really
the top
realize.
75.
And one of the reasons is, he and KC spent their first few years backing up Kuzi and Sharman when the Celtics were the invincible team, and that would never happen today. There would never happen a player of those stature, particularly Sam's, would ever be content backing up, and he finally got his chance, and he's now scoring big points, and he's doing such things as scoring 25 points a game, scoring 51 points in a playoff game, 47 in a playoff game, Sam Jones, and I just think Sam Jones belongs on this list.
So Sam Jones is also leading off my second 10.
Okay.
Sam Jones, Kevin McHale, Paul Pierce. I put Kevin Garnett in there, and you can argue back with me about years of service, but 2008 doesn't happen without him. Just doesn't. And our boy, Tommy Heinsohn.
Yeah.
Thank you for Tom.
I draw my line at 8, and then 9 is Parrish. 10 is Tommy Heinsohn, whose career, today, it's so, but it's true of so many people, starting.
So you don't have Garnett in the top 10?
He's coming up.
Okay.
Because the years of service. It's just years of service. I mean,
I get that.
That's a problem with me. This is what the difficulty, for me, one of the biggest difficulties in the argument is weighing years of service, because there's at least one guy in there that I am go to the mattress with. I love. He's not on this list at all because of 4 years. He's only played 4 years. I'll tell you who that is in a minute.
I know who it is. Paul Silas.
Damn right. He's right. Jackie, she knows me. Damn it, she knows me.
I just know that Paul Silas played 4 years for the Celtics.
Yeah. I got Tommy at 10, and
Okay.
Tommy retired at age 30 because of the knees. And today, it's just like Bobby Orr, for the same age, by the way. With today's medical advances, it's no big deal. The first time his knees go out, he gets a scope, he's fine. Tommy only played 10 years, 9 years, whatever. He retired in 65. Tommy Heinsohn was a great player.
Well,
Truly.
the thing is, Rookie of the Year, and what people don't remember, because if they're young like me, they didn't actually see it, was that first championship. Tommy's a rookie, and Bob Cousy's a mess, and he's throwing the ball
And
off
Sharman.
the backboard. And Sharman, they're all a wreck because they can't believe they might actually win one, and it's Tommy Heinsohn that brings them home.
35 and 23.
There you go.
37 points and 23 rebounds in the game 7. Tommy Heinsohn. Bill Russell,
Missed 9 free throws or something like that.
Bill
too.
Russell, 19
Pissed him off
points
to
and
this day.
32 rebounds. The 2 rookies carried them, while Coos and Sharman, God love them, we love them both, they went 5 for 40 from the floor.
They were a mess.
5, 4, 4, 0, and the 2 rookies carried
Right.
them in one of the great. And you know, when you talk to old timers of it, I've done many times over the years about the Celtic favorite moments and greatest games, etc. That game 7 and 57, they stuck to. It was electric. It was wonderful. But the guys who saved their butt were Heinsohn and Russell.
All right.
Okay, I don't want to get to 11 to 15.
Okay, you don't.
No. I want to know, any arguments out here? Anybody have been left out that you think we're nuts up here, or he's nuts, Poston?
Oh God,
That's the bottom 10.
There's another hour.
That's the bottom
right
10.
there. There's another hour. Oh my God.
No, the top 10 are the same. I just had Cowan's in the top 5, but we have identical 10, right?
Do we?
No, he had Garnett.
I got him at 12.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Let me once again. Mine: Russell, Bird, Kuzi, Havlicek, Pierce, McHale, Cowan, Sam, Parrish, Heinsohn.
Okay,
That's
he had
one-
Parrish. He had Parrish in the top 10. Parrish was 11th on my list. I'm not allowed to say that. Was that okay?
No, it's fine. All
So-
right, now my 11.
No, it's my turn.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Come on now.
I'm sorry.
So Parrish, DJ, JoJo White, Bill Sharman, and the last one, I want to wait. I want us both to wait on the last one because we had a little conversation about this, side conversation. So just give them your 4, not your 5th, okay?
Yeah, good.
Go ahead.
What? On what?
So,
What? I'm sorry.
so I just
These
gave
two
my
will be performing later in the lounge
Wait.
if you're in it.
So I gave them 10 through 14, but I'm holding off on 15 because you and I had a conversation about it. We didn't pick the same person as the very last one.
No.
So let's save that. So give us your 10 through 14.
All right, mine are 11 Sharman, 12 Garnett, and it's only about point of service. 4 years, but he was. Oh my God, I can't believe somebody's been left off. I just thought about it. 13 JoJo. I got to go JoJo. I got 14 now. This one I don't think we agree, but the contribution and it's my era, and I'm a little, I'm agreeing to. I hate the word bias, but preference, sentimentality, but also efficiency. If I got to make a 15-foot shot at any point in the game, and I can tell you this. Let me tell you this story. When in those days, if the lead went from 10 to 2, something like that, timeout Boston, let's run a play. Let me tell you what the play was going to be. It was a 14 play for number 19, Don Nelson, and he would make that shot. And I have him at 14. And I have at 15, but I could move it up higher. I just put an arrow. 13, 14, 15, DJ.
DJ. So your 15 turns out to be Nelly, let's just say for argument's
Yeah.
sake. So this was the one that I had a terrible time with, the last one. You mentioned Silas, not enough years. Does Ray Allen have enough years?
Oh, God.
Right?
Yeah, but same thing as Garnett. But
Okay, so Ray Allen's in my mind.
Yep.
And this, I was never going to pick him, but can I just say that if Reggie Lewis had lived, I really believe he would be on this list. But obviously he didn't, and so he's not on my list. So we looked at Silas, only 4 years. For a millisecond, I thought about Frank Ramsey, the sixth man.
Yep.
For a millisecond, but not much longer, I thought about Rondo. But I ended up with my 15th guy, Cedric Maxwell.
Yeah, right.
8 seasons, almost 14 points a game. MVP of the 1981
MVP,
finals.
exactly.
He belongs on this list.
I'm not going to argue that at all. I may be a mea culpa on a overlook. Certainly, his peak value was higher than my guy Nelly's peak value. I totally agree. I voted, by the way, there were people who think I didn't vote for him. I was a voter in '81 in that MVP, and of course I was a known Larry guy, you know. And I had a little issue with Max at times, but I voted for him. He won. Game 5 was the pivotal game of that series, and he totally dominated it, and he deserved that award. And Max being Max at his best. I just had a problem with Max in the end. Okay, I did. Max didn't end well, and I don't think there's any reason it should have happened except that Max was Max. He didn't end well. But so I understand that. No, but look at this. Our general consensus. What's that? 14 out of 15?
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. And Jackie's right about Ramsey. And then if you want to go way back, Macaulay, who's in the Hall of
Easy
Fame,
Ed, yep.
and helped along with Cousy keep the team afloat, you know, before Russell showed up. And Silas kills me. I cannot tell you how important he was, but to me it would be like 4-year contribution of Silas versus 4-year contribution of Garnett. And Silas did win 2 championships. Their record was phenomenal, but Garnett was a better, more complete player than Paul Silas.
We should mention one more player that I
got one of them.
was Tiny Archibald.
Yeah.
Is another
He's
one
one.
that
It's another
I gave a
point
lot
of
thought
service
to.
one, too.
But you know, remember he
Isaiah, what about Isaiah?
Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
So my
Point-
rule was this: you had to win a championship.
Point
You
of
had to win a
service.
championship.
Everybody on this list won a
I
championship.
know, but I just realized that.
It's
Yeah.
another, but point of service, I tried to take into consideration, that's all.
And
You
he
know?
was wonderful, but the thing is, with this
Well, he
organization,
was unlike anybody ever for a stretch.
exactly. But with this organization, when it's all about championships, that was the first thing I said. Everybody on this list has to have won a championship.
Well, I never even thought about that, but that's it's valid. You know, we just
Thank you, Bob.
no, it's totally valid. Totally
So,
valid.
no
But the fact
considera-
is that we came away with 14 out of 15.
No
which I-
consideration given to anybody currently on the roster.
I mean, Jason Tatum someday could very well be on
Oh,
this list, but that's a someday.
That's a
Not
someday.
yet.
I agree.
He's 23,
Yeah.
23
Yeah.
years old.
Brown?
Same thing. Someday, maybe. But we got to see more.
I would tell people 50 or 49, whatever, somewhere around 71, 72. I conducted a poll of the Boston Globe readers at a point when the only way to communicate with me other than phone call was mail. You know, that's the way the world was. And I did a poll about the all-time Celtic team, the top 12 and the top 5. And just to show you how times have changed, the only one I remember that made the top 12 that you might go, really? Siggy. Siggy made the top 12 from the fan vote back in that's Larry Siegfried, if anybody doesn't know. Siggy in 70. But think how we've advanced in 50 years at all. But that I got a great response, which only shows you that then and now, Celtic fandom, you know, is knowledgeable and passionate.
Here's the problem with trying to do this with a Celtic organization where in the 60s into the 70s, they won 11 out of 13 championships. You're going to have a lot of older players, former players from way back on your list because those guys won championships time and time again.
Yeah. But, you know, short-term guys like Bailey Howell, but, you know, no, sure. But that was my big problem, was trying to weigh in point of service versus, and you know, the long-term contribution. But I'm sticking with Nelly. I mean, and Don Nelson was a very important component in 2 champions, and especially in the first championship, post Russell, plus many other. Plus, hey, he made the shot in '69. You remember that? And you know, anyway.
They win 08 without Rondo?
No. Oh no, Rondo. You know,
He's in the
Rondo. I
mix.
can understand someone advocating Rondo. Absolutely.
They don't win without Ray Allen in 08
They
either.
don't win. They don't win, but they also don't win without Eddie House and
P.J.
Posey.
Brown.
You know,
P.J.
they needed
Brown.
everybody. P.J. Brown, which they so that was a community. Right? They don't win without Rondo. No, Rondo for a couple of years. There's never, even today, I can't believe he's still playing in this way. There's nobody like him. It's pretty important when you leave a mark on the game that there's nobody like you. You have set. Nobody plays exactly the way Rondo does. He has carved out a niche of his own. I give him that full credit, and that's important. He's not going to Hall of Fame. Don't worry about that. But he has he'll leave a memory and he'll leave a mark on the game.
KC should be considered, but I went back and looked because, again, I'm a little younger than Bob.
Yeah, yeah.
Very, very important on those teams. But Sharman was ahead of him.
Yep.
When you start getting down to the end, Sharman's ahead of him, and that's.
But KC, I can see you can make a. I can see you making a case.
I think Casey's career average was under 9 points.
No, he didn't. He didn't score a lot.
Right,
You know,
he was a
and I
defensive
think he had
player.
20 a couple of times in his career. But I'm not going to denigrate KC. He had to step in for Cousy after Cousy retired in '63. They go on. They win in '64, '65, '66, '68, '69 with KC. So that's a pretty good. I'll listen to your argument. It's fine.
Mike, we're going to jump in from the production table back here. So we want to make sure that we have all of these correct. Okay, so if anyone has any changes they want to make, we've got first team. Bill Russell, Bob Cousy, John Havlicek, Larry Bird, and Paul Pierce.
For Bob.
Any objections?
That's mine.
That's Bob's.
What about the rest of the panel?
Mine was Cowens instead of Pierce.
Is there any chance we can get the three of you to settle on the same team?
I'll go along with Pierce. I love
Yeah.
Paul Pierce. Yeah, I'll go along with that. That works for me.
was
Professional
easy.
scorer.
That's good.
We'll do that.
Yeah, we can do that.
We can do that.
Go ahead. You got more, Mark, up there?
On to the second team.
Okay.
And we breezed through this, so there may be some changes here. Sam Jones, Tommy Heinsohn, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and Dave Cowens. Are there any changes we need to make there?
Yes, in my opinion, there is. Can you say that again, please?
Sam Jones, Tommy Heinsohn, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, and Dave Cowens.
Yeah, see, I want Kevin Garnett in there. JoJo's in there.
JoJo.
We'll get to JoJo. You want Ray Lewis? We're not going to agree.
You got some good
apparently.
KG support.
I
I mean, Robert Parrish is amazing, and he belongs on this list.
Yeah.
But KG you could argue, was the #1 reason they won in 2008, 1 and 1A with Paul Pierce.
for many reasons.
Okay.
He was the only reason they won.
For many reasons.
KG. If you take KG out there, that does not happen.
Right,
Not
right.
even close to
And
happening.
I'm not saying, I don't think you win the way you did without Parrish, but I do think if we're weighting it, KG's weight to his team is more than Robert Parrish's weight to his team. And that's, again, not a knock on Robert Parrish, who, as I already told you, was one of my favorite people that I ever covered because he treated me with such great respect. And he was a tough guy for people to get along with. And he treated me in ways he and DJ, they welcomed me to the city of Boston in a way that I will never forget. So this is, we got to take the personal stuff out of it.
But the problem is...
I love Robert Parrish. I just talked to Robert Parrish last week for a project I'm doing
Really?
with the
Oh,
Ringer.
great.
And
But-
I'm going to scoop myself, but I have to just tell you guys this because it was just so... I'm doing a thing for the Ringer, and I won't bore you with all that. But one of the things I was asking him about was the fight with Dr. J and Larry. And, you guys have seen the video 1,000 times, how Moses was holding Larry. And Robert said that the stuff that Larry was saying to Dr. J was so foul, he decided not to intervene because he thought he deserved it. I thought that was great.
All right, my problem is, are we talking about historical contribution, or if I'm playing for my life tonight, what is the team I want to put on the floor? Because they're not the same thing.
Okay, so you would
They're not
rather-
the same thing.
Okay, so you
Ever.
would rather have Robert Parrish in that moment than Kevin Garnett. Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is, if you look at it that way, I'll grant you Garnett. He brings things to the table. I don't need Robert Parrish if I got Russell and I got Cowens.
But you
I
don't.
I don't need Robert
Okay,
Parrish.
all you have is a choice between, don't do this now. You have a choice between Kevin Garnett and Robert Parrish. That's your choice.
In what sense?
In the sense that that's your choice. Hey man, I gave you Pierce. Give me Garnett.
Then I'm sorry, I'll go Robert Parrish. He's a top 10 center that had every time you look at his field goal percentages over the years and recognize that the only thing that ever changed in his entire Celtic career was attempts, because of who he was playing with, not what was actually going in. And when you talk to a Larry Bird and reliability on a pick and roll and everything else that Robert did, running the floor, et cetera, no. I mean,
You don't have to
but
sell me
I
on
don't
Robert
need
Parrish.
him if I got Russell and Cowens. So yeah, I'll put Garnett in as a forward. And I agree with you. Garnett is the most single important of the three big three in '08. He is the most important. He was the spiritual center of the team. He was absolutely the focal point of the defense of the team. He brought something to the team that the other personalities weren't able to bring. Doc, I'm sure, would be the first one to admit that. But so we have to agree with what we're talking about. Contribution historically, and I still go Parrish, but I don't need him if I got Russell and you know. So Garnett, in that sense, what do we want? I'll take Parrish.
Mike, it sounds like you're the tiebreaker.
Garnett.
Garnett.
And I love Robert Parrish. It's not that I don't
I
love
love Barrett.
Yeah,
I know exactly
right.
what you're saying.
Exactly.
But having been on all those airplane rides and everything with the team and watched what Kevin Garnett did, I've never seen a player just take
Galvanize a
charge
group.
of everything. I mean,
Yep.
they didn't land the foolish plane without checking with him first.
And you know,
he-
Doc Rivers, for like about a year after Kevin left, you couldn't talk to Doc. If you asked him about Kevin Garnett, he cried. He really, every single time his voice would catch.
I'm
That's
not
how much he meant.
remotely arguing, how great Kevin Garnett was. No. What's that now?
Oh, who's the easier one to interview? Parrish, by far.
Well, for me, it was Parrish, although I worked really hard at getting my Kevin
Kevin
Garnett.
didn't speak to anybody, so
Yeah.
Unfortunately, by that time of Garnett, the
Wait.
world had changed. You actually had to make an appointment.
Is
I had to
Jeff
go
here?
through Jeff Twist
Wait, is Jeff
to
here?
talk to Garnett, which I never had to do when I was covering in my time.
Is Jeff here?
I was,
Jeff, come
yeah.
here.
I,
Jeff.
I have to go to see Jeff and say, can I get time with these
Wait,
guys?
I
I
wanna
never had to
see-
go time. I'd go out drinking with those other guys. I couldn't go out drinking with Garnett.
Right.
God, he was like a
Jeff, can you remember this? I don't know if you remember this, but I was writing a story on Kevin Garnett, and I was interviewing people all through the league, and this is when he was having his knee troubles. And we found out after the fact that the medical staff was trying to get him to take cortisone shots or at least some aspirin, and as you know, he wouldn't take anything. So I'm doing this story, and the word around the league is, yeah, he's done. He's not going to make it. He's no good anymore. And I'm like, man, I don't know about that. But so I'm trying to talk to Kevin, and Kevin's like, no. So finally I went to Jeff, and I said, Jeff, tell Kevin I'm writing this story with him or without him. And I got a call. Hello, Jackie. It's Jeff. Kevin will be happy to talk to you in Chicago. Just in case he thought. So he made me fly to Chicago, and he sat down with me, and he was outstanding.
No, he's
Outstanding. And just hearing that anybody thought he was done, I think is what. Do you remember that, Jeff? Yeah. So.
I want to throw a name out at my septa octo and nonagenarian friends here about a guy that I want to be remembered while we're here tonight, and we're all big Celtic aficionados, as a passer that every Celtic of the last 50 years would kill if they, the new ones would, if they knew what it was like to be on the floor when he was on the floor to receive one of his passes, because he lived for one reason, to pass the ball to you. Hambone Williams there was the funniest thing in those days, that when the game was out of control or whatever, and they were all edging closer to Tommy to get into the game when Hambone was in there, because they wanted to be out there when he was out. So let's just honor the memory of the Art Hambone Williams as maybe the most creative and clever and willing passer in Celtic history.
for a moment there, I thought Kuz was going to walk in the room.
Well, Kuzi's Kuzi. Yeah, that's a demigod, and everybody knows that. But people forget, I lived through the Hambone Williams era, and I'm telling you, I'm not making this up. Guys were like getting closer to Tommy. Yeah, I want to get in, because they knew Artie would get you the ball. He was a really tremendous passer.
Mark, do you want to venture into 11 to 15?
To the third team we go. And we only have 4 of the spots filled, I believe, based upon opinion from the group. So third team, Robert Parrish, who we just moved, JoJo White, Dennis Johnson, and Cedric Maxwell.
Oh, you had somebody else.
I had Nelly.
But wait, no, there's someone missing. We missed somebody.
Sharman?
Sharman. Bill
Sharman.
Sharman. We both had Bill Sharman.
We both had Bill Sharman.
So Max is the one that we disagreed with.
It's Max versus Nelly.
Yeah.
I guess, right? All right, Max a better player, okay? Max's best is better than Nelly, no doubt. Nelly was a specialist. Nelly could shoot the ball, a great offensive rebounder too, but Max's best, and when, you know, Nelly was never going to be an MVP in an NBA Finals or jump on my back boys in '84. We saw Max at his best, you know, and I just, you know, I wish Max had, you know, ended as a Celtic. It didn't end well, you know, and he has to account for that, in my opinion, you know. And I'm proprietary to Nelly, but I'm not going to fight how good Max was. So believe me, I could do the testimony for Max.
Did Nelly ever miss a free throw?
So they didn't miss too many, but Nelly had that, you know, that great shot put free throw. Oh, Nelly was a character. Nelly was special in his time.
He's still special.
His game, you know, doesn't exist today because it's a mid-range game, and we all know that's verboten. You're not allowed to shoot, you know, between 2 feet and 25. That's against the spiritual rules now. So Nelly wouldn't exist. Let me tell you something about Don Nelson. In Buffalo in the 1974 playoffs one day, he went 10 for 10, and they were all foul line jump shots. And you
Think
know,
about Nelly. That's interesting. As
Oh,
good as he
one-
was as a player, he's a much better coach. I mean, he's one of the most innovative coaches in the history of the game. And all these people that talk about 3 seconds or less and all the stuff Mike D'Antoni was doing, Nelly had drawn that stuff up long
he
before
was-
then.
he was the mad scientist.
You know, Hack-a-Shack, all the things that there happened. Nelly was just, and I just saw Nelly a year ago. Ponytail and sandals.
oh God,
He is rocking it. He lives in Hawaii.
I didn't recognize him at the Hall of Fame.
He looks
I didn't know he
fantastic.
was. One
He's
more
awesome.
thing. 1974-75, he's 34 going on 35. He led the NBA in field goal percentage, and they were all mid-range jump shots. Occasional putback, mostly mid-range. So, but whose best was the best? Between those two? Yeah, it was Max. I won't argue. Sharman was a great shooter of his time in the 50s. He was and a great defensive player and a tough competitor. And Tommy Heinsohn, on more than one occasion, told me he was the best athlete on our team. He was also a tennis player and a scratch golfer. And he was a guy of the times, you know, when there were multi-sport athletes, which are in short supply these days. But Sharman was, along with Cousy, I mean, you look at, go check your 50s NBA, all Cousy Sharman. They were the backcourt year after year in the first team NBA. Sharman's a great player.
Yeah, he was all NBA like 5 times. Wasn't he first team?
Yes.
Yeah, 5
So
or
he
6
should be
times.
remembered. And I think we have to remember the pioneers of the league. And Sharman was.
He belongs on that list.
So-
Sharman was also the first coach to invent the shoot-around.
Oh, yeah.
He started doing shoot-arounds in the 70s. And everyone's like, what the
71,
hell is this guy
72?
doing? I want to go home and take my nap. And he was making them do walkthroughs in the ballrooms at the hotels they were staying
He
in.
was a very smart guy.
Yeah, very cerebral. Lakers coach later on in life, too.
Yes.
Just a fact.
Mark, you good? I can't see you. I know
Only
you.
1 year, Marty. Only 1 year, not long enough.
Oh, was it
Oh,
Walton?
Bill Walton, he was unbelievable.
Oh,
yeah. But
You
he
can't be more proprietary toward Bill Walton than I am. But in this particular discussion, 1 year doesn't get you. But if Bill Walton were up here, he would tell you how much the Celtics mean to him. And even though he won that championship in Portland in '77, that he prefers to identify himself more as a Celtic. Some of that has to do with the history, injury history, and the beef with the doctors in Portland and all that. I grant you that. But he so totally embraced being a Boston Celtic. It meant as much to him as any player that I can think of. I want to tell you somebody else who loved being a Celtic, and his name has come up, and I know how much he loved being a Celtic, and it should be remembered for this, is JoJo. JoJo, who he didn't spend his whole career here, but he really embraced being a Celtic.
He was a great ambassador for the team.
Yeah.
Really great ambassador.
And then Silas, who told me, once he said to me, I played 14 years in the NBA, this is when he was in Seattle. He said, I played 14 years in the NBA, and the only 4 years anybody remembers are the 4 I spent in Boston. And that's not necessarily true, but it were the four most important years. And I think he would testify to you, if you were here tonight, how much it meant to him to be in Boston. And by the way, check out the win-loss record of that team in the 4 years he was here. He was a very, very, very special guy, and I hate leaving him off this team, but I'm just trying to be fair. But I wish he had played I wish he had played more, but he was extraordinarily important on this team.
One final question for both of you. First, you, Jackie. The one player that you would want to go out and have a few beers with after this night and have a nice dinner and just the two of you talk.
Well, besides Larry, my man Robert Parrish.
Well, Jackie, should we get the Cabernet or the Merlot?
It would be Paul Silas. I was totally impressed with this man, this human being, a man's man, quote unquote, a guy who I thought, had he not been a basketball player, would have been like a state rep, maybe even running for Congress. He was a leader of men. He had an impact on people that was just when he walked in a room. He was one of the most impressive people, and we had, you know, a lot of conversations that had zero to do with basketball that I'll always remember, and I don't think a player ever impressed me any more in that regard than Paul Silas. And believe me, there are guys I loved. I loved John Havlicek. I love Cowens to this day. But I'd have to say, to answer Mike's question, give me one shot, it's a night with Paul Silas.
You guys have talked about, Donnie and Casey. How much input did they ever have when they were in the huddle? They came up with coaches, right? How much input do the players have at that point in time, people who become coaches, when you're in the huddle and trying to figure out a play?
When? At what point in time? When?
I think he just means in general. Yeah. So, like, don't you already know that Rajon Rondo's going to be a coach? You already know it, right? Just from watching him during his time here in Boston. Certain players you can just tell by the way they do things. And by the way, Yeah.
I mean, now the most interesting time was when Russell was coaching, and they had a committee that was helping. You know, Siggy was a de facto offensive coordinator of the team. Russell was taking care of the defense, but Wayne Embry, the first year, 67, 68, was on the team, and he was a mentor, and he was helping out. It was kind of a committee. And another guy that we should mention, I wish we could have found room for. Talk about this. He didn't involve in this discussion, but another Satch Sanders. Oh my God!
The greatest. He's
What
the best.
what a wonderful man.
There's
Satch
a guy that should have been a
Sanders
congressman.
Oh my God. I can still picture Satch. First of all, he was famous. He got the most tape anybody ever got on those ankles. He almost bankrupted the team with the tape that they had to put on his ankles. And all the time he was being taped, he was reading a paperback. Satch did all his reading on the road and in the locker room. Because when he got home, he was tending to business. You know? Oh, yeah. Oh, there's another. I might have to make room for Satch that night. 2 hours with Silas and 2 hours with Satch.
Well, the good news is you can call Satch up and actually
You can still
do
get
it.
Satch, thank God.
So,
God
you know,
love him.
Satch told me when he first came to the Celtics, he gets in there and he's like, they just kill everybody. They're in such great shape. And then he got in there and at halftime, everybody was smoking.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, everybody's smoking cigarettes, and they're all like, yeah, you should smoke too. So he started smoking, and he was like throwing up after the games, and his wife's like, what's wrong with you? He goes, I don't know, they tell me I have to smoke. He stopped.
Who would make your top 5 guys who didn't win a championship?
Of the Celtics, or
Okay, top 5 guys who didn't win a championship.
Ooh. Well, there was a gap in there. Let's see.
Antoine's a forgotten name. tonight,
Antoine.
right?
I mean, I would put Reggie Lewis in there because I think
Yeah,
he was going to
yep.
get there. I'd put Reggie Lewis.
Dino?
How about Isaiah Thomas?
Isaiah Thomas will do that because I feel bad for Mike. He keeps bringing him up. He was so short, such a short time with Isaiah. But I wish nothing. I feel badly for Isaiah Thomas. I just think it should have. And talk about things
Yeah,
should have ended better.
that didn't work out
He certainly won
the
that.
way it should have.
Should have had a better time.
Doesn't take away what he did, though. Doesn't take away from the year he had.
No, never. So how many did we give you so far? 3. So
Trying to think,
that
so-
didn't win.
Well, I'll tell you what. It's not Wicks and Rowe. I'll tell you that. Let's be honest. Let's get that off the table right now. He won. He guarded Baylor in
Yeah, he
a
won.
famous game. Oh, God, Guerrilla got a ring. Oh, yeah.
Baylor's the one that didn't get the ring.
He got a wing. Yeah, Baylor never got a ring. Yeah, but Guerrilla did. No, yeah, oh, yeah. I'm trying to think. I don't know.
It's really hard because.
Oh, well, Macaulay, you have to start with him then, because he played against the Celtics in '57 after they traded him in the Russell trade. He never got a ring, and he's a Hall of Famer. His
Yeah.
number's up there, 22. So you might want to start with him, Ed Macaulay. He got a ring.
He got a ring
Two. One. He got one in '74.
Yeah.
In fact, he helps win that game in Game
Right.
7. The lead got from 17-3 in Game 7, and he went down the baseline with a beautiful reverse layup, started the run back to get the lead up. He got a ring.
I don't know.
I
We'll
don't know.
see.
Final questions. Any?
What's that now?
What's your take on the current team?
That it's annoying, that it's frustrating. No, I said that after like game 2 or 3. They ought to be better. The talent is still there. I don't care if Brown didn't play. I don't care if I'm a little frustrated because Robert Williams is hurt again. He's always hurt. And when he's out there doing well, you see how important he is. And I'm not giving up. It's early. But I'm frustrated. The fan in me is they're annoying. They ought to be better. I don't get it. Period.
Well, I think what's annoying about them to me, it's okay if you miss shots. It's okay if they've lost some games in overtime. What's not okay is when you miss a bunch of shots, you turn around and you run
No.
back on defense.
No.
And that's the part that
Right.
drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Because
No,
those guys are great players. They're young. They still have a chance to
Yeah.
be something special. But, we made a big deal about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both having the potential to be two-way players, the likes of Paul George. I mean, Popovich is the one that said that. So where is that?
I know.
Because if you can't score, like that's the great equalizer about. I started playing golf, and there's no equalizer in that. Like you can't out hustle yourself on a golf course. But if you were a basketball player and you missed a bunch of shots, you could play defense. You could block shots. You could get rebounds. You could contribute in other ways. And that's the part for me that makes me go. You guys
Spurts.
learn nothing.
You see spurts, they're a tease. You see spurts, and you say, oh, man, God, yeah, this is what we were looking for. This is what they can do. And then it doesn't last. And then let's go back to last Friday night. Yeah, they win. They beat the Bucks fine. Without 4 of their first 6 guys. And they have to go overtime to beat the Bucks bench. And yeah, they did, and Schroeder played the game of his life. And fine, but they ought to be better. But unlike some, I'm listening, some are ready to, jump ship. I'm not jumping ship because I see the raw ability that is there. I can't believe that they won't figure it out sooner or later.
You can't find blue chip scorers like Jason Tatum. You can't. I mean, I remember Danny Ainge once when he didn't re-sign Tony Allen. Remember? I'm like, man, I think that one's going to come back to bite you, Danny. Tony Allen's so important what you do. He's so important defensively. And he said, I agree, but he wanted too much money. And he said, Jackie, you can always find defensive players. What you can't find are blue chip offensive scorers. And that's what Jason Tatum is. And I keep hearing out everybody wants to ship him out of town. And he's 23 years old. He is not perfect. But you'd be crazy to be the GM that moves him on his way.
Oh, no.
Bob Ryan and Jackie McMullen, thank you for coming.
Thank you.